The morning quiet echoed in the kitchen, broken only by the rhythmic chopping of the knife. It was a little past 5 a.m. The outside world was still dim, but for me, this time was routine. I need to do my best today, too. My name is Emily James. It has been 17 years since I married my husband, Tom. I love working, so even after getting married, I continued my career. But I also wanted to support Tom, so even on busy mornings before work, I always made him a packed lunch. I murmured to myself as I opened the refrigerator and took out the ingredients. Neatly prepared, eggs, ham, spinach, and some chicken breast, specially priced at the supermarket a while back, was nicely thawed. As the oil in the frying pan started to sizzle, I already envisioned today's completed lunch in my mind. Tom's favorite is fried chicken. Frying can be a hassle in the morning, but to me, it wasn't a chore, but an expression of love. While making the fried chicken, I suddenly recalled our early days of marriage. I was barely 20 years old, with little knowledge of cooking basics, standing in the kitchen, making my first lunch for Tom. Back then, he happily ate even my misshapen sandwiches. I transferred the fried chicken to a wire rack and let out a small sigh. For 17 years, I've continued to make lunches for Tom. No matter how busy work was, or even when I was feeling under the weather, I would wake up at 5 a.m. and make his lunch. It was a strong manifestation of my will to support our family. Seeing Tom head off to work with the lunch I made always filled my heart with satisfaction. But lately, I felt a slight change in Tom's attitude. He rarely said thank you anymore, and his reactions when I handed him his lunch seemed indifferent. Still, I tried not to let it bother me. These things happen in a long marriage, I thought. Finally, I added some cherry tomatoes and broccoli for a pop of color. As I admired the completed lunch, a mix of yellow, green, and red, I couldn't help but smile. It felt invigorating to see my love take such a tangible form. "Okay, your lunch is ready." I placed the lunchbox on the dining table, and Tom emerged from the living room looking sleepy. His bed hair was slightly noticeable. I gave him a gentle smile. Tom picked up the lunchbox, mumbled a brief thanks, and headed for the entrance. The sound of the door closing signaled his departure, and the quiet returned. I managed to see him off safely again today. I took a deep breath and started preparing for my own day. I have a job too. I am in the middle of an important project at the company where I have worked for many years. But for me, before being Emily James, being Tom James's wife was the most important identity. The clock showed it was almost time for me to leave. Unlike my precise knife skills when preparing the lunch, my hands moved swiftly with practiced ease, applying makeup. I encouraged myself in the mirror, and once again started my day filled with love. That day, I stopped by the supermarket near the station after finishing work on time. Checking the special flyers, I put ingredients into my basket. For me, preparing lunch was also a way to relieve the stress of work. I arrived home a little after 7 p.m. As I reached the entrance, I saw that Tom's shoes were already neatly placed inside. He was early today. I called out as I entered, and Tom's voice replied from the living room. "Yeah, there was no overtime today." His voice sounded tired, but there was also a hint of something else, perhaps grumpiness, that I couldn't quite place. When I entered the living room, I saw Tom slouched on the sofa, fiddling with his smartphone. Seeing him like this, I felt a slight unease, wondering if something had happened to upset him. "How was the lunch? Was it good?" I usually don't ask him about the lunch, but for some reason, I felt compelled to ask him that day. At that moment, Tom furrowed his brows and looked away from his phone. "Honestly, about today's lunch? My coworkers laughed at it. They said it looked kind of childish." The tone of his words made my heart sink. It took me a while to process what he had said. "Childish? What do you mean?" When I asked, Tom let out a sigh and leaned back further into the sofa. "Well, the colors and the way the eggs were cut. Everyone was like, 'Wow, it really looks homemade.' I want a normal, good-looking lunch. It's embarrassing." It felt like the love I had poured into making his lunches was being completely rejected. My mind was racing, trying to understand what I was being told. But Tom, seemingly oblivious to my inner turmoil, stood up to end the conversation.
Anyway, I'm asking you, please make it look more adult-like.
Tom left the living room without waiting for my response. I was left standing there, holding the lunchbox Tom had brought back. It was still a bit heavy. When I opened it, I saw that most of the fried chicken and colorful vegetables were left untouched. He barely touched it. A small sense of unease settled within me. More than Tom's words, this sight before me felt like a betrayal of something important. As I stood at the sink, I tried desperately to convince myself, maybe I'm just overthinking it. But even as I told myself that, the unease wouldn't fade. The sound of running water seemed to echo coldly in my heart. The next morning, I woke up at the usual time and made lunch. Tom's words from yesterday were still stuck in my mind, but I decided to make some changes, hoping to meet his request for a more adult-looking lunch. Instead of colorful dishes, I opted for simpler, more subdued options. I made a ham and cheese sandwich, thinly sliced grilled salmon, and an omelet. This was my idea of a more mature lunch. On my way home from work that day, I ran into Tom's coworker, Mr. Johnson, while waiting in line at the supermarket checkout. I remembered him as a gentle and polite man from when I was introduced to him at a company party before.
Oh, Mrs. James, right. Long time no see.
Mr. Johnson greeted me with a smile. Surprised by the unexpected reunion, I returned his smile. Mr. Johnson, it has been a while. What a coincidence to meet you here. We made small talk while going through the checkout. Afterward, I mustered up the courage to ask him something. About Tom. Is it okay if I ask you something?
Sure, what is it?
I hesitated for a moment before briefly explaining yesterday's events. Mr. Johnson's expression turned slightly troubled.
Actually, I was a bit concerned too. Mr. James has been complaining a bit about his lunch lately.
Complaining? Even though I had anticipated it, hearing it directly was a blow. Mr. Johnson continued, looking apologetic.
For example, when we suggest going out to eat, he'll say, I can't, I have lunch from home. But then he'll jokingly say things like, my wife makes these lunches, but honestly, they're kind of lame.
I struggled to absorb his words. Lame, he described them. It was unbearable to know that the love I put into his lunches was being treated as worthless. I see. The words I finally managed to say were surprisingly small, even to myself. Mr. Johnson scratched his head, looking uncomfortable.
I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have said anything. But I always thought it was great that he brought a homemade loving lunch. I thought you had a wonderful family.
There was a sincerity in Mr. Johnson's words, but I couldn't fully accept them. I simply smiled politely and murmured a small, thank you. On the way home, Mr. Johnson's words kept replaying in my head. Lame, complaints, love, lunch. Each word felt like it was tearing something inside me. By the time I got home, I was feeling completely down. I put down my bags and stood in the quiet kitchen. Should I make lunch again tomorrow? I thought of Tom's words and Mr. Johnson's account. My feelings were far from uplifted. What have I been doing all this time? My whisper dissolved into the night air, unanswered. The next morning, I was still standing in the kitchen. The doubts and sadness that had washed over me the night before hadn't faded even after a night's sleep. But even so, I couldn't bring myself to stop making his lunch. It was a habit ingrained over many years, and my feelings for Tom compelled me to keep going. Let's try something different today. I decided to incorporate a new approach, almost experimentally. Remembering how he complained about the lunch's appearance, I meticulously arranged the food. I chose subdued, Japanese-style dishes with muted colors, meat and potato stew, grilled fish, and pickles, neatly packed into the lunchbox. How about this? I sighed as I closed the lid on the finished lunch. Tom appeared in the living room and picked up his lunch as usual. I changed it up a bit today. Let me know what you think. Tom merely glanced at it and gave a curt, okay. Without another word, he headed for the entrance and left. Only the sound of the door closing remained. It is no use, no matter what I do. A small sense of resignation began to grow in my heart. That day, after finishing work, I hurried home. When I returned, the first thing I noticed was the lunchbox Tom had left behind. I took it to the kitchen as usual, and when I opened it, I found it completely empty. Oh, he ate it all. I was surprised at how happy it made me to see the empty lunchbox. But would it really change that dramatically just by altering the appearance and taste? I really wanted to see how Tom handled his lunch at work. But if I asked him directly, it would just lead to another confrontation. I decided to take action myself. The next day, I used my lunch break to visit the area near Tom's office. I had told Tom beforehand that I had some business nearby, so he wouldn't find it suspicious. I looked around at the various restaurants and cafes in the area, making excuses to myself in my mind. It wasn't wrong for Tom to eat out. Maybe he just had a reason for disliking the lunch. But what I saw was far beyond my imagination. Through the window of a restaurant near his office, I saw Tom. He was laughing and chatting with several men who appeared to be his colleagues, enjoying a lavish lunch. The table was filled with beautifully arranged Western dishes. There was no trace of the lunches I woke up early every morning to make. This was Tom's true feeling. My chest tightened, and I left the scene. I didn't even think about what I would do if someone asked me why I was near his office. I just wanted to get away from there as quickly as possible. That evening, I sat at the dinner table with Tom without saying a word. I could hear Tom's voice as he talked about his day as usual, but it felt distant. A new resolve was beginning to form in my heart. Is there any point in me continuing to make lunches, catering to his reactions? Can I honestly say I'm happy with this situation? As night fell, I stood alone in the chilly kitchen, quietly whispering to myself, "What should I do?" My doubts grew larger with each passing day. Could it be that he's throwing away my lunches? Either way, I needed to confirm the truth. I couldn't settle my feelings with things left ambiguous. One day, my work ran late, and I was on my way home in the evening. I decided to take a slightly longer route, and I was passing by a nearby apartment complex when I saw something unusual at the garbage collection point. There was scattered food waste. This was a quiet residential area, and I rarely saw crows messing with the trash bags. The garbage collection point was always clean, likely because of the residents' diligence. But as I looked closer at the scattered food waste, I was shocked. It was the contents of the lunch I had made that morning. There was no mistaking it. The contents of the lunch I had made that morning were scattered all over the garbage collection point. I knew that Tom had already come home because he had texted me when he left the office. He had taken a detour on his way home to throw away the lunch here. Why? The reality that my lovingly prepared lunches were being treated as mere trash etched a deep pain in my chest. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't move from the spot. Has he been doing this all along? Unanswerable questions swirled in my mind. That night, I didn't say anything to Tom. But every time I looked at his face, I wondered why he couldn't just tell me directly. As I swallowed my words, I realized that a feeling different from anger was beginning to sprout within me. Are we done for? The next day, I decided to head to Tom's workplace. I thought it would be better to grasp the facts before confronting him directly. When I arrived near his workplace, it was just around lunchtime. I watched as the neighborhood office workers flowed into restaurants and cafes. After a while, I spotted Tom. I decided to observe him from a distance. Tom, along with several colleagues, entered a stylish Italian restaurant near his office, chatting and laughing. When I saw that scene, I froze. He hasn't been eating my lunches, not for a long time. As I confirmed that fact, the unease I had been feeling turned to certainty. It wasn't a problem that he was eating out. The act of pretending to eat the lunch and then throwing it away felt like a denial of my love. Did my feelings mean nothing to him from the beginning? I looked back on the past days. For 17 years since getting married, Waking up early in the morning to make his lunch had become part of my life. I didn't want to think that it was all meaningless, but I couldn't keep turning a blind eye anymore. Should I put an end to these days of having my love ignored? A new conflict began to sprout in my heart. The next day, I made Tom's lunch as usual, but the feeling, as I handed it to him, was different from before. The act of pouring love into something felt empty, yet I couldn't bring myself to stop. I felt a strange irritation at my own inability to stop. See you later. As the sound of the entrance door closing echoed, I let out a deep sigh and grabbed my smartphone. The person I contacted was my close friend Michelle, a friend from my student days with whom I could easily discuss marital issues and work problems. A little after noon, Michelle and I met at a cafe near the station. Michelle seemed to sense that something was wrong the moment she saw me. "What's wrong? You don't look well." Her words loosened the tension I had been holding. I told her everything about the lunches. Tom's words, seeing him eat out, and the discarded lunch. I spoke as if I was vomiting out everything I had been holding inside. After listening to my story, Michelle was silent for a while, but her eyes were filled with kindness and concern for me. "That must have been really tough." Hearing her words, I nodded slightly. "Emily, it's only natural that you're angry. 17 years is a long time. Anyone would be hurt to have that trampled on." Her words brought me a sense of relief. The feeling of having someone understand my feelings lightened my heart, even if only a little. "You should talk to Tom properly when you're calm. He probably doesn't realize how much he's hurting you if you don't say anything." "He doesn't get it." "Yeah, I think maybe he's doing it without any bad intentions. He just hasn't thought about how his actions might affect you." Michelle's words made me feel a little surprised. I hadn't considered the possibility that Tom's actions might not be intentional. As my conversation with Michelle ended and I walked home, I reflected on her words. "Talk calmly." Her advice seemed correct, but I felt like my heart wasn't ready yet. "But I can't keep running away, can I?" I muttered to myself, trying to look forward. I had to tell Tom how I felt, and how he took it was up to him. At the very least, I decided I wouldn't silently get hurt anymore. When I got home, I went to the kitchen again. The next time I talked to him, I wanted to be able to clearly convey how much thought I had put into these last 17 years. It felt like I was starting preparations for that. That night, I finally decided to face Tom. After dinner, I called out to him as he was clearing the table. "Tom, I need to talk to you." My voice was surprisingly calm and steady. Tom looked back, surprised for a moment, but replied, "What is it?" We sat down in the living room, and I took a deep breath, carefully choosing my words. "It's about recently. What do you think about my lunches?" Tom's expression clouded over slightly. "What do you mean all of a sudden?" he said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "I want you to be honest. What do you really think about my lunches?" Tom remained silent for a while at my question, but the longer the silence stretched, the more my chest tightened with nervousness. "Remember the other day when I came home late because of overtime? I was passing by a nearby apartment building." At my words, Tom's face paled visibly. "You threw away my lunch, didn't you? In the garbage collection area there." "That's..." Tom finally looked at me as if he had given up. "Did you ever stop to think how much time I spend making them?" My voice started to tremble. Tom looked down, seemingly searching for words, then finally opened his mouth. Of course I appreciate it, but to be honest, I get teased about it at work. That's why I was hoping you could make them a bit simpler." At that moment, the emotions I had been suppressing surged out. "Simpler? That's not the point. I've been waking up early every morning for 17 years making your lunch. And you just throw it away because it's embarrassing?" Tom was taken aback by my outburst. He probably didn't think I had been harboring such strong feelings. "Emily, I didn't think you'd be this angry. I'm sorry." "Do you even understand how I felt when I saw the lunch I made thrown away in the trash? Do you have any idea?" Tears welled up in my eyes.
It wasn't just anger. It was a mixture of sadness and disappointment. Tom just hung his head, at a loss for words. We hardly spoke to each other that night. I couldn't sleep, and as I stared at the ceiling, I kept thinking, what was it all for? Everything I've done? My love for Tom, my anger, everything was jumbled up, swirling inside me. But one thing was certain. If things continued like this, I would break. The next morning, I started preparing to make lunch as usual. But I suddenly stopped. I put the ingredients back into the refrigerator and prepared a simple breakfast just for myself. I can't take it anymore, I muttered, making a firm decision in my heart. The next day, I woke up at my usual time, but I didn't go to the kitchen. Giving up on making his lunch after 17 years weighed heavily on my heart, but I told myself that it was necessary. I stood in front of the mirror and stared at my reflection. I saw a tired woman in the reflection. I realized again how the years of devoting myself to Tom had worn me down. I'm done sacrificing myself. That day, after work, I went straight to my parents' house. I had called my mother in advance, so when I opened the door, she greeted me with a worried expression. "Emily, are you okay?" "Yeah, I just need a little break." Seeing my mother's face, the tension I had been holding in broke. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. My mother gently hugged me without saying a word. That night, I talked to my mother in the living room of my parents' house, something I hadn't done in a long time. I told her about my married life, the love I had put into the lunches, and Tom's cold attitude. After I'd finished, my mother was silent for a while. Then she spoke quietly. "Emily, you've done your best, but marriage is about supporting each other. It's not sustainable if only one person is doing all the work." Her words deeply resonated within me. I might have been afraid of being supported, trying to shoulder everything myself. My mother's words made me realize that. But if I'm not there, what will happen to Tom? When I murmured that, my mother smiled gently. "It'll be fine. If you're not there, Tom will have to face his own weakness. Sometimes letting him do that is also important for a married couple." Before leaving the house, I left only a note on the table. It might be a bit old-fashioned to leave a note these days, but I couldn't bring myself to use an app to contact him. I'm going back to my parents for a while. I need some time alone to sort out my feelings. Life at my parents' house became a time for me to regain my inner peace. The conversations with my mother and the familiar cityscape brought back a sense of calm. And gradually, I began to see my own life from a new perspective. What should I do from now on? A new determination was budding within me. It was a determination not to live solely for Tom, but to seek my own happiness. Days at my parents' house were strange. It felt like I had regained the personal time I had long forgotten. But on the other hand, Tom's face constantly flickered in the back of my mind. Every morning when I woke up, I would unconsciously almost head to the kitchen. The habits of 17 years were not easy to break. But I no longer had the energy to wake up early and make someone else's lunch. "Good morning, Emily. You seem a bit more energetic today." My mother greeted me with a gentle smile. I tried to force a smile back. "Yeah, I'm fine. But I still can't gather my thoughts." My mother nodded and placed a warm cup of tea in front of me. As I stared at the light filtering through the curtains, I was lost in thought for a while. In the late afternoon, I went out to meet an old friend. The local townscape seemed mostly unchanged, but I felt how far removed I had become from this place. "Emily, it's been ages." My friend looked at me with nostalgia. During our casual conversation, I found myself talking about Tom. He was throwing away my lunches without saying anything. The moment I spoke those words, my chest tightened. The reality that came out of my own mouth hurt me anew. "That must have been awful. That's really terrible." My friend was angry, but she held my hand. The warmth of her touch brought tears to my eyes again. At night, I inevitably thought of Tom. What was he thinking now? Did he even notice I was gone? Or did he still think of my presence as a given?
I need a little more time, I whispered, and the quiet of my parents' house seeped into my heart. I believed that all this time was necessary to reclaim myself. I gradually got used to life at my parents' house. In the mornings, I would have a leisurely breakfast with my mother and then take a walk. During the day, I had time for myself. Freed from the hectic routine, I was slowly regaining the energy to face my own feelings. However, I also realized that I couldn't fill the void that had suddenly appeared in my heart. If I don't do something, I'll become lazy. It was about a week after I started staying at my parents' house that this thought popped into my mind. As I was idly passing the time, the subject of work came to mind. A new project was supposed to be starting soon at my workplace. One afternoon, I decided to call my boss at work. My boss's voice, which I hadn't heard in a while, was a little surprised but welcomed me warmly. "Thank you, Emily, especially during this difficult time. Don't push yourself. Come back when you feel ready." His words warmed my heart. I had no intention of talking about my family issues honestly, but I wanted to find a new version of myself, little by little, by going back to work. I actually love my job. I'd like to participate in the new project. My boss laughed and replied, "That's great." Just hearing that gave me the courage to take a step forward. While staying at my parents' house, I started reading through work documents, making time to brainstorm ideas for the next project. The thought of having a place where I could test my skills again filled my heart with a gradually expanding sense of positivity. One day, my mother observed me and quietly said, "Emily, you seem to be doing better." I managed to return a small smile at her words. "Yeah, thanks to you, Mom." But somewhere in my heart, I was still thinking about Tom. Would the day ever come when that would completely disappear? Thinking that, I was still regaining my passion for work. Peaceful days continued at my parents' house. One day, my mother asked me, "What's Tom doing?" Honestly, I had been trying not to think about him too deeply. I figured he was probably managing somehow, even without me. And even if my absence was a bit inconvenient, I didn't think he was the type to ponder on it further. I tried to convince myself of that, but my mother's casual words made me a little curious. That night, I opened my smartphone and looked at my message history with Tom. Since I came to my parents' house, he had sent me almost no messages, except for a short "Are you okay?" once in a while. I hadn't felt like replying, and I hadn't kept a record either. I guess nothing has really changed. While texting that, I couldn't deny that there was a part of me that cared. The next day, as I was preparing for my return to work as usual, my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Tom. "I tried to make a lunch." I involuntarily looked at the screen twice. What did he mean by saying he made a lunch? Shortly after, a photo was sent. It showed a homemade lunch, albeit a clumsy one. The omelet was misshapen, the wieners were burnt, and the broccoli was unevenly arranged. On top of the haphazardly packed rice, the word "sorry" was written in nori seaweed. "What is this?" I blurted out. A mix of surprise and confusion welled up inside me. Tom sent another message. "I tried making it, and I realized how hard it is. It doesn't taste good at all, and it's hard to pack it nicely. I took for granted what you were doing for me. Now, I realize how amazing it was." Reading that message, a small pain throbbed in my chest. He finally realized what I had been doing. But what should I make of his words? That night, I told my mother about it. Tom made lunch. My mother's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh my, that Tom. That's unusual." But it's too late. He thinks he can make up for 17 years of my feelings with this? I said, but a part of me was curious about Tom's actions. Why would he suddenly try to make a lunch when he had been so indifferent to them before? My mother smiled softly. "It might be late, but it's better than not realizing it all. Still, for him to go that far, maybe something is starting to change." My mother's words resonated with me. If Tom was starting to change, It might be because he realized things only after I was gone. But whether that was a genuine change or a temporary one, I didn't know. A few days later, Tom sent another message. I'll keep making lunches until you come back. When I read those words, I couldn't help but smile a little for the first time in a while. It wasn't perfect, but I felt that he was trying to change something in his own way. Maybe he has changed a little. Thinking that, I closed the messages without replying and gently put my phone away. Since that day, messages from Tom started to increase. At first, it was one-sided, but it seemed to have become his daily routine to send a photo of his lunch every time he made one. The lunches in the photos were always a bit clumsy. The omelets were unevenly cooked, the wieners were sometimes burnt, and the colors were often unbalanced. But strangely, looking at those photos made me chuckle. I found Tom's clumsiness endearing like him. One day, a short message arrived from Tom, not a photo. Can I bring you a lunch? I frowned when I saw the message. What is he thinking suddenly? I imagined him standing at the entrance of my parents' house, but it didn't feel real. After some hesitation, I decided not to reply. That evening, the doorbell rang suddenly. Emily, someone's here, my mother called out to me. With a bad feeling, I opened the door, and as expected, Tom was standing there. Hey. His voice was somewhat awkward. In his right hand, he held a lunchbox that appeared to be handmade. What are you doing here? I couldn't help but sound blunt, but he didn't flinch and smiled slightly. I wanted to give you this. He held out the lunchbox. It contained homemade rice balls with slightly uneven shapes and awkwardly arranged side dishes. I also noticed a small folded letter inside. A letter? I asked, and he nodded. I wanted to tell you properly. I was a little surprised by his words. Tom had never been the type to express his feelings clearly. It was even more uncharacteristic of him to write a letter. Can I read it now? Yeah, of course. I replied and carefully took out the letter and unfolded it. In the letter, written in Tom's awkward handwriting, were these words. To Emily, thank you for everything for the past 17 years. At first, I took the lunches you made for me every morning for granted. I never thought about how early you woke up or how much effort you put into them. I'm ashamed of myself. But when you were gone, I realized for the first time how important they were. I realized how much love you poured into them and how much they supported me when I tried making them myself. I'm really sorry for not understanding your feelings. I realized how hard it is to make lunch and how precious it is. I want to start over. Let's make lunch together next time. As I gazed at the words, something deep inside my heart gently stirred. Do you think I can forgive you so easily? My voice was surprisingly calm when I spoke. Tom smiled wryly and mumbled, I know, right? That day, the lunchbox and the letter he left behind presented me with a small choice. I still couldn't decide what to do, but I was sure that Tom had started to change. Whether we start over is up to you from now on. I told myself while considering whether I should face him again, contemplating it during the peaceful time at my parents' house. It was a relief to be free from the responsibilities of the house, and it felt good to refresh my mind and body, but thinking about Tom made my chest ache at times. One evening, as I was gazing at the sky in my parents' garden, my phone vibrated. The screen showed a message from Tom. I want to see you. I want to talk. I hesitated for a moment, but then sent a reply. Okay, when? We decided to meet at the station that night. When I saw Tom after some time apart, he looked somewhat refreshed. It wasn't the appearance of him trying to show off, but rather him showing his true self. Sorry, Emily. I've been thinking a lot since that day. Why did you throw away my lunches? Tom looked down silently. After searching for words for a while, he finally spoke. A junior colleague said, It's like a curse, not being able to eat out because you have a lunch. So I went out to eat to rebel against that. But if I went home without eating your lunch, I thought you'd say something.
But the more I thought about it, the more I realized the taste of your lunches, that love, was something important.
I was surprised. It was the first time I had seen Tom talk so honestly. My heart grew warm. Then why didn't you tell me? That you wanted me to do this or that? Or that you didn't eat lunch every day?
I think I just wanted to look good in front of my colleagues. I wanted to show them that I was loved by my wife, who made me lunch every morning, that I was a good husband.
Hearing his words, I shed a few tears. I've been working hard for 17 years, you know. It was a shock to have my lunches thrown away like that. Tom apologized deeply.
I'm truly sorry. I was too late in realizing how important you are to me. But I won't do anything like that ever again. I want to face you properly.
A long silence followed between us. The air was comfortable, and I felt connected even without words. I exhaled softly. I also thought I needed to make a decision soon. I took some time apart to see what kind of person you are. I wanted to think things through again. Tom nodded with a serious expression.
Emily, I want to start over with you. Let's make lunch together next time.
His words seemed to melt my heart little by little. I could feel the sincerity behind his words. Okay, I want to start over too. We held each other gently. In that moment, I felt the beginning of a new relationship. Tom and I decided to live together again. From that day on, our new life began, but it wasn't about returning to our old life. We both started making an effort to change, little by little. First, we started making our lunches together. Tom was initially surprised by the taste of my cooking, but he gradually seemed to enjoy it. I suggested to Tom that we change our lunches to something we could both enjoy, rather than focusing on appearance like before. It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, making it together like this changes the taste. It feels happy somehow.
I always made them alone, so it's refreshing to make them with you. At first, our teamwork was a bit awkward, but we gradually found our rhythm. Tom was impressed by how I carefully selected each ingredient and packed the lunch with care.
When we make delicious food together, it feels like our hearts connect.
If you try cooking for real, you might find you have a knack for it.
Think I could do it?
We also started going out together on weekends to find common hobbies. Visited places we were both interested in, and naturally started talking more as we enjoyed our time together.
It's been a while since I've been to a place like this.
It has. We haven't been on dates since we got married.
That's true. We used to go out a lot before we got married.
One day, as we were walking in a nearby park, Tom suddenly stopped.
Hey, Emily, do you think we can really make this work?
I think we can, as long as we face each other honestly.
I'll truly cherish you this time.
I smiled naturally at Tom's words. Thank you. I believe you. A new trust was gradually budding between us, and by respecting and cooperating with each other in our work, we started to feel more at ease. The one-way feelings gradually transformed into something mutual and supportive.
You've changed recently too, haven't you?
Have I? Changed how so, specifically?
You're more direct with your words. I feel like I can sense your kindness more than before.
I'm glad you feel that way. The two of us started walking towards the same goal, little by little. Little by little, our hearts connected, and we could see a new day where we supported each other. Since Tom and I started making lunches together, our daily life began to change little by little. On the way home that day, Tom returned with a lunchbox in hand. He looked a little happier than usual.
Emily, a junior colleague told me today, Mr. James' lunches always look delicious.
Oh, that's great.
He said he was always envious. He noticed that I stopped bringing them for a while, but when I started bringing them again recently, he said he was happy for me.
I'm glad. It makes it all worthwhile if you're happy. Our relationship was gradually changing in a way that was visible to those around us.
I'm very lucky to have you, Emily.
I'm able to do my best because you're here for me, Tom.
Talking like this makes me realize we need to support each other more.
Yes, let's do our best together, the two of us. We shared our thoughts and reaffirmed the importance of our relationship. Our life returned to a peaceful and warm routine. The habit of making lunch together was firmly established, and now the mornings had become an important time for us. That day, too, the two of us stood side by side in the kitchen, exchanging light-hearted banter as we cut ingredients and seasoned dishes. "Hey, that omelet needs a little less heat, or it'll burn." "Oh, really? It's about to burn?" "You've told me that so many times." "Here, let me do it." No, I'll do it till the end. See, it'll be fine, even if it's a little burnt, right?" "No, presentation matters too." It was a playful argument, but somewhere in the exchange, my heart naturally smiled. One day, Tom came home from work and handed me a letter. It was something he had apparently written during his lunch break. "This is a thank you letter from me." "A letter?" "I wanted to put it in writing. I wanted to express my gratitude properly." I was surprised but carefully opened the letter. Inside, Tom's honest feelings were spelled out. "To my dear wife, thank you for everything for the past 17 years. At first, I took the lunches you made for me every morning for granted. I never thought about how early you woke up or how much effort you put into them. I'm ashamed of myself. But when you were gone, I realized for the first time how important they were. I realized how much love you poured into them and how much they supported me when I tried making them myself. I'm really sorry for not understanding your feelings. I realized how hard it is to make lunch and how precious it is. I want to start over. Let's make lunch together next time." As I finished reading, tears welled up in my eyes. "You didn't have to write it in a letter, you know," I said with teary eyes, teasing him a little. "Maybe so. It's a bit embarrassing to say these things out loud, but I really wanted to tell you. Thank you. I'm truly grateful." "Me too. I'm so glad that I have you, Tom." I gently hugged Tom. An indescribable warmth flowed between us. A few months later, there was a big promotion announcement at Tom's workplace. Tom had been promoted to the position of section chief. At the celebratory party, Tom was asked to give a speech. According to what I heard later, Tom apparently said this: "Thank you, everyone. This promotion is not due to my efforts alone. It's actually thanks to the support of my wife. The lunches she makes me every day have given me so much strength. I'm truly grateful to her." The colleagues who heard the speech praised me, saying, "What a wonderful wife," and "You're an ideal couple." After the celebration, Tom came home and said to me again, "I can do my best because you're here, Emily. Thank you. Let's keep walking this path together." Yes, with you, Tom, I know I can overcome anything. We held each other close, envisioning the future we would build together, and continued to weave our happy days.